This is one of the things that I always kind of say is why it's so great to work here, is because it changes so much that your visit here the first time could be completely unlike your visit next time because of how much Presque Isle changes. We just went through high water, really extreme high water back in 2019, 2020, and it flooded areas of the park that hadn't been flooded in maybe 30 years. And it's completely changing that ecosystem now because of that. And people were blown away that hadn't been around for 5 years that came back and were like, oh, this is so different. And it's one of those things with Presque Isle, like every time you come, it's just a little bit different all the time because it's like it is a recurving sand spit. It's always moving. There's so many dynamic forces that are put onto it with weather, wind and wave action, that it is always changing all the time.
Imagine a place where stress fades, fresh air fills your lungs, and adventure awaits around every corner. Welcome to Think Outside, the podcast that inspires you to explore, connect, and embrace the outdoors. Welcome to Think Outside with the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation. I'm your host, Marci Mowery. We are recording today in a conference room at the Tom Ridge Environmental Center, which sits near the entrance to Presque Isle State Park. With me is Matt Greene, Park Manager at Presque Isle, as well as the nearby Erie Bluffs. Matt, thank you for joining me.
Sure, thank you.
Presque Isle, which I recently read means almost an island, is the most visited of Pennsylvania's 124 state parks, with an average attendance of 4.1 million visitors. What makes Presque Isle such a destination?
I think just probably its uniqueness in Pennsylvania's kind of topography. It's really something different than the rest of Pennsylvania, being its only kind of, well, not the only, but one of its only Great Lake parks, and having a geological feature that's pretty rare even in the Great Lakes. It makes it such an oddity. And with that comes all the different uniqueness of flora and fauna that we have here too. So it is kind of unlike any of our other state parks, being a recurving sand spit in Lake Erie with more rare, threatened, and endangered species than any other area in Pennsylvania of comparable size, just because of its makeup of sand.
Nice, nice. I was on the shoreline yesterday looking out into Presque Isle, and from my vantage point, that's all I could see was Presque Isle creating the bay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's nice now, too, because it being a traditional Erie winter, which we haven't had a lot of since I've been here the last 10 years. But if you stand out on the shore today, you'll be able to see ice dunes and ice almost as far as you could see out there. It's really cool how fast things change weather-wise here, which make it unique, too, and honestly drive that change in flora and fauna on a much more rapid basis than you would get in a more inland state park.
Okay, I understand. So if you're interested in flora and fauna, there's that to look at. But what are some of the things that a visitor could do out at Presque Isle?
Well, there's the beach. Everybody loves the beach, right? It's like going to, like, just say the East Coast without all of the salt water and sharks that everybody's afraid of. It's part of the local tagline here with the Visitors Bureau of salt-free, shark-free in Erie. And honestly, the beaches here are amazing. We have 7.5 miles of sandy beach on the lake shore. Lots of different guarded beaches here on the park. So lots of opportunities for swim and recreation in that way. Not to mention other kind of things you would think of more being ocean type recreation as well. We have a lot of windsurfing, kiteboarding, actual like just wave surfing here, that kind of stuff that you don't get to do anywhere else in Pennsylvania, which make it really unique.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've bicycled out onto Presque Isle. So can you talk a little bit about the trail system?
Yeah, so we have the Carl Boys multipurpose trail is a 13-mile loop trail that goes completely around Presque Isle, offering some really unique views of not only Lake Erie on the kind of the outer section of the trail, but on the interior section of the trail, it goes right along the Presque Isle Bay, which gives you really great shots of downtown Erie. And quite honestly, that's another one of our pieces of recreation beyond the multipurpose trail is just pleasure driving. People that come down, typically state parks, we close them at sunset. Here at Presque Isle, we stay open till 11. And people will come down, grab an ice cream cone at Sarah's, something to eat there, and drive around and be able to see those night shots across the bay of the city, which are pretty amazing in the summertime.
I could imagine. I was enjoying looking the other way, but then I walked out onto a marina pier yesterday and looked back, and it's just a different perspective. You don't often get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when I think of Presque Isle, two things pop into my mind. One is walking the beach for beach glass, and the other is bird watching. And I love to come here and just walk, even if I don't find any beach glass. I like the meditative aspect of walking along the shoreline. And I was here once with a friend who was a marine biologist, and she was looking for a certain type of shell. I was not seeing the shell. She was not seeing the beach glass. we had trained our eyes in different ways.
Sure.
But then I used to work with the National Audubon Society, and that's the first thing you learn is like Presque Isle. So can you talk a little bit about the bird life here at Presque Isle?
Yeah. I mean, there's over 360 different species
That's
you can
incredible.
see here on Presque Isle. That time period in the springtime where warblers kind of migrate through, you can tell, you don't have to know anything about birds to know that it's a major bird area because of all of the spotting scopes and people that are out on a regular basis here come kind of that late spring, early summertime period when more warbler migration's happening. But it being that kind of that green space that's really on the edge of a major crossing area for the Atlantic Flyway between Canada and the United States, it's a great place for birds to stop and rest after coming from Canada, or for them to kind of hang out for a little bit, feed up. One of the great things about Presque Isle is a great food source for birds. It's so marshy. We have lots of insects. It may not be great when it's just before sunset to be
to be a human,
in those points. But for birds, you can't beat it. Like that, the habitat is perfect. So they can stop, feed up before their long trip across, and vice versa. So, I mean, it is obviously for Pennsylvania, it's an important bird area, but for bird watchers, they come from all around to come to Presque Isle to see this. And that's not just normal birding, also waterfowl. This time of year, starting to see some more waterfowl coming back through. Ice is coming off a little bit. And then that early winter, the amount of waterfowl that you can see from here is just, it's amazing.
Yeah. I was watching gulls come in last night, and I like gulls. I'm an equal opportunity bird watcher.
Nice.
And it was just nice. I could hear them chatting with each other and, landing on some ice-free spot on the lake last night.
We had a really cool experience one time when the secretary and staff was up one time. The director was up at the same time. We kayaks from Beach 11, which is on the far eastern side of the park. Took the kayaks out towards Gull Point, and it was one of those days where it was really calm and being shielded from Gull Point on the southern side of Gull Point in the kayaks. But as soon as you got around towards the tip, it was about 4-foot rollers. So we were going up and down, up and down. And there was probably, I don't know, maybe 300, 400 gulls that were out there. And all of a sudden we were probably 150 feet away from the shoreline. And all of a sudden they took off and went right over top of us. It was super cool. And then, sure enough, like a minute later, here comes a coyote. The real reason it all took off. So it was like a really cool experience, not just from like the kayaking side, but having that experience out at Gull Point and seeing all those birds kind of fly over you, and then see why.
Yes, I was like living Wild Kingdom.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. Of course, they razzed me a little bit about cue the birds.
Like, cue the coyote, cue the birds.
But you can witness that kind of stuff here, which is really cool. Another great thing about birds here, we have purple martin roost here at Presque Isle. And it's moved around a little bit over the years, depending on water levels. That's another dynamic thing about Presque Isle is since I've been here, we've been through the highest water levels in recorded history. And now we're on that way back down where things are starting to get pretty low again. So that roost moves around a little bit depending on water levels. But at the head of the bay, just last year, again, they were back. But it's nothing to see this giant amoeba blob of purple martins in the sky at night. And then all of a sudden to see them by the hundreds start diving into the reeds to roost for the night is a really cool experience that you can't just get anywhere.
What time of year do you typically see that?
That's August, September. Yeah.
Okay.
End of August, early September. It's really cool. You can get a kayak and just kind of be out there a little bit a ways away and watch the whole thing go down. I remember when we first moved up here with my family, took our little kids out sit on top kayaks and went out there, and they were just like blown away by that piece of nature that kind of going on here.
Yes, I'm making a mental note. Return August.
Yeah, you definitely have to come and watch that. It's really cool.
There's a lot of people out here in the summer, so I'm sometimes like, well, just go on the shoulder season.
Yeah. That's a really good time to come here too. And a lot of people don't know this, but there's this lull in state parks, and it really happens here too, as kids start to go back to school in that mid-August time frame. Really, those last 2 weeks of August before Labor Day is this beautiful little piece of like lower visitation, still nice summertime. That if you want to go experience the parks with a little bit less people in during the summer months, those are the 2 weeks, like those last 2 weeks of August are really good.
Good little piece of advice. Well, you mentioned the roost moving, but Presque Isle itself has some movement to it.
Yeah. Being a recurving sand spit, it's always kind of moving. Like you can go out to Beach 6 one day and the beach be, let's just say from the water line back to the dunes, maybe 150 feet long or wide there. The next day you can come up and it could be 50 feet just because of a storm that has come through. Like it's always moving, and water levels play a huge part of that. Water levels and wind. So wind drives all the waves on Lake Erie. Those waves are what causes erosion on the park. And then the amount of water that's in Lake Erie, that water level really changes how much erosion happens and how much doesn't happen. So the lower the water, the storms don't have as much chance to get up higher onto the park to pull more sand off. So lower water years, the park is more kind of building. And that's a cycle of about 10 to 12 years between highs and lows. There's also the cycle of summertime to wintertime as well, where in summertime, the storms are way less, the waves are more gentle. So we're actually building sand in the summertime, where once we get to October, November, storms ramp up. It starts pulling more sand off because those waves are getting higher and higher. So it's these kind of multiple different cycles that are kind of going on, the annual cycle, and then more of the high water, low water cycles as well.
That's a dynamic system to manage.
It's pretty interesting. It keeps it fun.
Yeah, I imagine. Now, you had started to say, and then you corrected yourself, that it's the only Pennsylvania state park on Lake Erie. Correct. There is another one. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Erie Bluffs.
Yeah.
It's the park that is very unlike Presque Isle. They're two completely different parks, both on Lake Erie and both unique in their own ways. And Erie Bluffs is just shy of 600 acres out in the western part of Erie County, and it is fairly undeveloped. It was kind of pieced together from multiple tracts of private land over the years. Some was municipality hands that really provide a unique experience of kind of undeveloped bluff on Lake Erie. It's a really cool park. It happens to contain a day use area where it's the second largest, most popular steelhead fishing area in Erie County in Pennsylvania. So with Elk Creek running through there, you can launch a non-powered boat, a small powered boat, get out onto Lake Erie there. Steelhead fishing in the fall and in the spring is really huge down there. And it also has some unique flora fauna kind of aspects to it too, having pumpkin ash out there, which is pretty rare. Pretty interesting piece of property that we have in the system that is a much different experience than Presque Isle. You can actually walk the shoreline down at Erie Bluffs, and that is really what kind of untouched shoreline on Lake Erie looks like. Presque Isle is a little more different than that, being that we do beach nourishment here and put sand on the beach every year. Erie Bluffs is really hands-off, much more natural, and really can give you that full-on kind of what it would look like just every day.
Yeah, and that's what I remember when I visited it a few years ago, is just standing on the shoreline, being amazed and thinking, this is what it would have looked like several hundred years ago. But also having that moment of awe, standing there and feeling so tiny in the enormity of the Great Lake Erie.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of beach class, if you like beach class, Erie Bluffs is a great place for beach class. Not a lot of people get on the shoreline over there. And the way beach class works is anywhere there's a stream outlet that could potentially have, unfortunately, glass in it. That's where the beach glass really ends up turning out. So Erie Bluffs is another one of those ones that's like really good for beach glass here.
I have my hiking shoes. And I've done some steelhead fishing over there, like more like watching other people catch steelhead than catching any myself. I was looking at a map and I was looking like if you were at Big Elk Creek State Park and you came to Presque Isle State Park, it's a 6.5-hour drive. So somebody coming in, like making that trek diagonally across Pennsylvania, it's the Presque Isle's a day use park. What are some things that would keep them here for several days? Because that's a long drive to make for a beach day.
Yeah. So I think there's things in the community and there's things that we have here within the complex of Presque Isle State Park complex, meaning Erie Bluffs being one of those things that you should definitely get out and explore while you're here. But the Tom Ridge Environmental Center, you could spend easy half day in the Tom Ridge Environmental Center learning. And really, we'd like to encourage people before they go down to Presque Isle, stop at Tom Ridge Environmental Center and kind of frame your visit. It'll kind of give you the ins and outs, some things you should definitely check out, give you kind of that basis of how the park was formed, what it is, and some things you should do while you're out there. So that's a definite. We have a movie theater in here that plays all different kind of scientific and kind of conservation-based films. We have a tower up that you can climb, 65-foot tower. Get to the top there and you can see out across Lake Erie, which is a really cool vantage point that you can't really get from anywhere else. We have a really cool gift shop that's all local artists, kind of handmade stuff, which is a neat aspect here. So there's lots of stuff to do here in Tom Ridge Environmental Center. Beyond that, there's a ton of stuff to do locally here too. One of the draws for my family to come here was it's like a big little city. Everybody knows everybody here in Erie, but it has like all the amenities of every other big city like Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Cleveland. It's situated almost perfectly between those three big cities. So you kind of have all aspects of that. So if you're coming into town, you definitely should, if you're going to stay overnight, book a place down on the waterfront in the bayfront. There's lots to do down there and there's more stuff to do all the time. Lots of water-based recreation kind of stuff is part of kind of being here in Erie. Like if you're not around the water, you're really missing out being here. Summertime is one of those times that if you can't find something to do every night of the week, you're really not looking.
Try harder.
You basically have these 100 days of summer that are just filled and packed with stuff to do. So if you're coming into town, especially in that kind of like Memorial Day to Labor Day, and even into the fall a little bit, there's just so much to do. Pretty much every night of the week, there's some sort of concert going on at some sort of waterfront venue. We have a Wednesday night concert series that goes on here. The Presque Isle Partnership puts on Sunset Music Series, which is great. There's 8 Great Tuesdays that happens at Liberty Park over on the Bayside. I believe it's a Tuesday night venue. There's stuff that happens out in the Girard area, another night at a park. So there's always certain sort of concerts going on in the summertime. Also, if you, like I said, being a very water-based kind of town, you should get out. If they're doing sales on the Brig Niagara, you should try to get on the Niagara. Or over the last couple of years, the flagship Niagara League has leased the Letty G, which is another tall ship in town. So you can get out on a tall ship and get out on the water, which is a really cool experience being here in Presque Isle. Another great thing to do when you come to town, obviously there's multiple sport teams, minor league sport teams you can go to really inexpensively when you're up here. But you really probably should try to get around at least on the bayfront and do a little bit of walking on the bayfront. There's amazing fishing that you can do, whether it's just standing there fishing from somewhere on the bayfront or getting one of the charter boats. Walleye fishing has been going nuts for like 6 years now. It's been really, really good. Bass fishing in that early summertime period. We just had a Major League Bass Fishing TV show come up last year and did a big week-long thing. But the smallmouth bass fishing and largemouth bass fishing here is amazing. It's nothing to drive through our kind of launch areas in that May, early June timeframe and count 15, 16 different state license plates because they're all up here because bass fishing is so great here.
Excellent, excellent. We oftentimes, when we think about a park visitor, we think about somebody that's out for conservation and recreation. But history is also very popular among park visitors. Can you talk to us briefly about some of the history that people would encounter here at the park?
Yeah, we have some really cool history here. With the park being over 100 years old now, the park was kind of signed into legislation in 1921. There's a lot of history from that period or even before that. Probably some of the oldest pieces of history on the park would be the Presque Isle Lighthouse. It's a national landmark, and it's one of those pieces that if you go to any restaurant in Erie, you probably see a picture of it. It's one of 3 lights that are in Erie: the Presque Isle Lighthouse, the Land Lighthouse, which is on the east side of Erie, and then the North Pier Light, which is out on the park on the North Pier, which creates the channel coming into Presque Isle Bay. It's a really cool public-private partnership that's going on at the lighthouse. It used to be a manager's residence for a number of years when it was given to the state from the federal government through surplus. But back in 2014, we entered into an agreement with Presque Isle Light Station for them to take control of that building and for them to run it, operate it more as a museum. So as a manager, you don't have to worry about people looking in your windows anymore. We made the managers out of there. We got everybody who wanted to see into the Presque Isle Lighthouse now gets to. And really the great part about that partnership is that they are solely focused on that structure, where we're focused on 3,200 acres here. We're focused on the almost 20 acres here at the Tom Ridge Environmental Center campus and the 600 acres out at Erie Bluffs. So it allows them to be laser focused and fundraise and do everything they can to make that structure just live on in perpetuity, which is really great. They've done some really good projects out there to kind of revert some of the things that were done to the building that weren't necessarily as historic as they needed to be, revert them back to historic time period. And the time period they're looking at is the early 1920s for that. So everybody should go out there. You can climb to the top of the light, which is a really cool perspective from up there. And that's just one of those pieces. Right off of the Presque Isle Lighthouse is the sidewalk trail. It is an original piece of poured concrete trail that went from the bayside all the way out to the lighthouse. And that's where the lightkeeper would have docked the boat when they came across and brought supplies, walked the supplies across the sidewalk and all the way out to the lighthouse, because they had been bringing oil there for a number of years. All the supplies that they got came that way, came across the Presque Isle Bay by boat. And then they walked them through the sidewalk trail all the way out. So that's another piece that's kind of tied to the Presque Isle Lighthouse. Another great piece of history here is the waterworks area. The waterworks area is really that first part of Presque Isle State Park. It was really developed by Erie Waterworks as they needed water for the city of Erie. Presque Isle was this prime piece that they saw as playing into being able to supply that water. And if you come onto the park, there's 2 ponds. They kind of, as you're driving in, they're on your left-hand side in that area. Those were settling ponds that they were using to settle water out before they pumped it back across. There's a ferry slip there where their Erie Waterworks boats would come back and forth across. But they had built a little bit of infrastructure for recreation out there. There was once a bayside changing house and beach there at one point. There's multiple shelters. They're there for rental now. They have a fireplace in them. It's a great place to have a family reunion, picnic kind of thing in that area. But all of that stuff was built really just after the turn of the 1900s. So 1907 through 1915-ish is really when a lot of that infrastructure was built, which is really cool. So lots of really cool kind of history and multiple pieces of history too through the years. I remember reading through some of the park archive stuff, and they did a reenactment of a D-Day landing here on Beach 11 at one point, just to kind of commemorate that in our nation's history. So there's always this kind of tie, and it's pretty strong tie with kind of the military of the U.S. I think he's still even in our deed to the property, which was given to us by the federal government at one point. It says that it will remain in the hands of the Commonwealth unless needed for some sort of national emergency. So there's always that strong tie with the Coast Guard station still out on the end of the park. There's always been some sort of history. There was a blockhouse during the French and Indian War out at Perry Monument. Perry had brought back the British fleet that he captured in the War of 1812 back to Misery Bay. They retrofitted some of the ships for commerce, retrofitted some of the ships for battle again. So there's a ton of multiple kind of periods of history here at Presque Isle.
Yeah. So if you're a historian, this is a destination for you as well.
Absolutely. You should definitely come check out all the different things we have on Presque Isle, but then also check out the Erie Maritime Center because it complements so much of the stuff that's going on here. It's a really good kind of like 1-2 punch.
Excellent. Excellent. So as part of the podcast, one of the things that we really want to do is try to inspire people. And you've talked a lot about some really interesting things to do, but if you could sum it up into one think outside gem, what would that gem be?
I think probably, and this is one of the things that I always kind of say is why it's so great to work here, is because it changes so much that your visit here the first time could be completely unlike your visit next time because of how much Presque Isle changes. We just went through high water, really extreme high water back in 2019, 2020, and it flooded areas of the park that hadn't been flooded in maybe 30 years. And it's completely changing that ecosystem now because of that. And people were blown away that hadn't been around for 5 years that came back and were like, oh, this is so different. And it's one of those things with Presque Isle, like every time you come, it's just a little bit different all the time because it's like it is a recurving sand spit. It's always moving. There's so many dynamic forces that are put onto it with weather, wind and wave action, that it is always changing all the time.
Excellent. And then I'm looking forward after we're finished here. I'm actually going to go out because it's been a couple of years. So It'll be like a brand new experience for me.
Great.
One last quick question before we wrap up. I think part of the beauty of the podcast is inspiring people to think about careers in state parks and state forests. So can you just talk briefly about what brought you to becoming a park manager?
Yeah, sure. I came at this from I don't say completely different angle than a lot of my peers, but I came at it from the recreation side rather than the more traditional science side. I know a lot of my colleagues have come at it from the biology side or from the environmental science side. I came at this, I was a whitewater guide in Ohio Pile. I was a ski patroller and really just loved being outside and wanted to see that those outside places could remain special for a long time. If you're into the outdoors, it doesn't matter if you're from the science side or whatever side, recreation side. I think this is a really interesting career path for people. A lot of people in our agency are just avid outdoors people. They love the outdoors, and that's why they do what they do, because they want to see it stick around for so many years to come. I did go into my college years not in the kind of park and recreation management. I started out as a technology education teacher, but quickly kind of switched my degree field after starting into parks down in Ohio Pile. Like I said, I'd worked there for a number of years as a whitewater guide and went back to school after my career in the military. Kind of came out of that, my working time, kind of worked as a seasonal park ranger 1 and did an internship at Ohio Pile. Really decided like this is the thing to do. Like if you can not only protect our beautiful places in Pennsylvania as part of your career, but make those memories possible for people that are coming out to visit, that's a really powerful thing.
That is.
It's not something you think about, I think, when you first get into it, but when you start meeting people and you start talking to visitors and you start giving them a little bit of insight on, oh, you should go check this out. And you walk up on a family that their 3-year-old caught their first bluegill, and it's like this monumentous thing in their vacation for that year. It's a pretty inspiring thing for you to keep kind of going in this career field, because those kind of memories are like being made every single day, like minute after minute after minute, they're all being made. So you can play a part in that, which is a really cool thing.
That's excellent. Well, I appreciate the work that you do and have done over the decades of your career.
Well, and you as well. We thank you for all your support.
Thank you. So Matt, thank you for joining me today to share your knowledge and enthusiasm for Presque Isle and Erie Bluffs. And if listeners would like additional information, where can they get that?
So you can get that on the Pennsylvania DCNR webpage. All of our state park information is on there and listed out there. They can also call the park office, talk to one of our fabulous staff members here. We always like to say that this is one of the best agencies to work for in Pennsylvania, because everybody that's here is here because they really want to be in this line of work. So you're going to get to talk to somebody who is enthusiastic about Presque Isle, be able to give you the ins and outs if you just call the main office number here at 814-833-7424, and they can hook you up with any information you need.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. I know you've got a big day ahead of you and a big conference coming up, so I won't take any more of your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Think Outside, where every episode invites you to discover new places, build confidence, and find inspiration in nature. Love the show? Subscribe for more inspiration, share with a fellow explorer, and let's keep thinking outside together. For more resources and inspiration, visit thinkoutsidepodcast.org.